So with past videos, we have looked at using colouring pencils, rendering. We've looked at drawing in 2 dimensions, orthographic, and we've looked at drawing in 3 dimensions, isometric. Okay. Today we're going to look at exploded diagrams. So normally in class I say, has anyone seen an exploded diagram before? And some people say IKEA, use IKEA as the example. IKEA often have exploded diagrams. As you may know, you should know that most pieces you buy from IKEA are flat pack and you have to construct them yourself. So they will normally, on the front of the instructions, they will include an exploded diagram, and it just allows you to see, okay, those are the individual pieces and this is how you fit them together. So obviously this is before, this is after, okay? Exploded diagrams also use to kind of construct or to build, assemble, should I say, items. So here's an example of a pen, okay, and again we've got a piece of furniture there and all of the separate pieces. It could be something like that, you know, and it breaks down this particular kettle, every single element and part that is required, okay? Hopefully you get the idea. So as you will see, it's still 3D, and it actually, a lot of the times, but although not always, it is drawn with the same rules as isometric. You can see the tick there, that would be the crow's foot, this would be the garden fork. Okay, the only difference is it's broken apart. So we're going to have a go at drawing a 3D exploded diagram. And what I've chosen is I've chosen a little Lego person. Okay, so the reason I've done that is because hopefully people could have something similar around the home. I'm trying to select items that are accessible. Okay, and also you've got lots of different bits and pieces. I've got to be careful, I'm not going to lose any of these because they're so small and fiddly. But obviously I'm going to draw it a lot bigger. Okay, you could also do something like a Lego car, but that's quite intricate. There's lots and lots of shapes there. Okay, but we're just going to have this Lego police officer. I will say that I've simplified it a little bit, and also it may be that this because I'm going to do this as a 2-part video actually, but this will be maybe a little bit complicated and people may not be comfortable tackling something like this to begin with because there's quite a lot of different parts. That's fine. If you want to do something a bit simpler, go at your own level or what you know, your own pace, what you're comfortable with. What I suggest is a chair is a good starting point. If you could start with a chair, you don't have to, because probably the chair you're sitting on right now, if you're doing home learning, you probably will have a chair something like this, and you can just take a look at it, look at all the different pieces and imagine, okay, how, if you were to break it apart or explode it out, how would it look? You could pick a piece of furniture in your home, you could pick an electrical item. That might be tricky because obviously you've got, please don't destroy any electronic items in your home by disassembling them, but you know, have a go if it's easy to do so. Something like, you know, a little cupboard or you know, box type item. Could do a pen. A pen doesn't really have many different parts, that's the only thing. Generally it's only a few, but you could do. Depends what you've got in the home, but I would say try and challenge yourself. Okay, I've done this Lego person because I wanted to challenge myself, but you know, obviously go what you are comfortable with. So, exploded diagrams. So, a lot of the time, it's going to be similar to begin with, at least, with how you would tackle a isometric drawing. So, the same rules apply. I would draw a box. Every item I draw in isometric, even if it has curves, something like this, I always draw a box out first of all, and then think, how am I going to build that into it? That's your framework. That's your, you know, almost like the backbone that then you can construct and add your specific shape. So I'm just going to look at, for this video, I'm not going to worry about the head, I'm not going to worry about the hand, I'm just going to worry about the legs and the body. So I've got these 2 items here. So because it's an exploded diagram, I'm going to have the legs here like so, and I'm going to have the body above it disconnected. It's the other way around. I'm going to have the body like this. So I'm going to do this on one piece of paper, and then I'm going to do the head and the hat on a second piece of paper, and that'll probably be part 2. So But if you wish, you can draw this all on one. I'm just doing it just because I'm doing a tutorial. So I would draw my box out first of all. Now, if you're doing an exploded diagram, you would imagine that obviously this is going to be level. You don't really want this over here or over here. So you want it so it's all stacked up as it should be. So I would draw a box for the legs, and then I would draw another box or crate for the body. So let's put these just off to the side. I don't know how well you can see those because they're quite small. But hopefully we could have some Lego at home, so you could take that apart and kind of see yourself. So as I say, the body obviously needs to connect to the legs. So I've drawn a little dotted line. I did a dotted line for myself and a dotted line, and I know this element and this element then are level. They're going to be like that, aren't they? Okay, and I've left enough space because I want to try and do these plugs or pegs, whatever you want to call them, and they will go in this space here. I've also done these 4 marks because even though I'm doing a crate, actually the item tapers in, doesn't it? It's not a straight line. I know I'm going on about straight lines, but actually this is one of those instances where the shape itself, it isn't parallel. These would meet, wouldn't they? Train tracks don't apply in this case. These would connect up. If this plastic was longer and it kept going and going and going, it would become a point. So therefore I've needed to put 2 points there. Now those 2 points need to be level with those 2 points. So we measure that distance, that has to be the same. We measure that distance, that has to be the same. You can use a ruler. I will say that I've drawn this freehand because I'm not going to worry too much if you're a millimetre out. It's more about, does it look as it should? Okay, that's the main thing. I'm not going to be, marking down if people are out. It's just getting the general concept under our belt, really. So I'm looking at this shape. Now, I said everything starts with a crate, but if you look at the side legs, where's my camera? There. It's a little bit blurry, but you can see there is a curve, okay? So there is a curve like that. Now, we've talked about curves before, but one easy way is you can put a line, this curve, if it was a circle, it'd be a bit lower, the line would be there and the line would be there, okay? But actually it's not a complete circle, is it? Is that going to focus? That's frustrating. Hopefully you can see that. It curves and it stops there, so it stops at this point. Then it would have a straight line going down. Now remember, that straight line will be parallel with these lines here. So I've drawn that out. And then what else do we know? Well, we know that that circle goes all the way along. Okay, so I would take this line and I would extend it all the way along, making sure it's level with this. Okay, and I'll do that. And then well, there needs to be another curve here. Actually, you should be able to see that. That curve there, that needs to go in here. So it needs to start there and it needs to curve around. It needs to match that curve. So you would look and you would keep checking that one and you would match that curve. And actually, again, whether you can see it or not, there are 2 other lines where the plastic joins because it needs to be able to bend. So there are 2 more circles, curves that are here and here. Okay, so I've drawn that out. Again, I've made these just to kind of save a bit of time. So you need to be looking at all times. Same rules apply. Is this line parallel with this line? Is this curve, this curve, this curve, this curve, do they all look the same? Okay. We're not worrying about that at the minute. I'm breaking it down into just as if I'm only drawing this. I will worry about that later on. Okay, so the legs, you need to know that these lines go all the way down to the bottom. Draw it lightly. Remember, not drawing too heavily on the page. If you need to rub out, you can do, and you won't engrave into your page. You've got feet that stick out there, and they stick out all the way along, don't they? So again, these feet won't stick out like this. They will if you look inside on, but they won't if you're looking like that. So I'm going to keep saying it, but that needs to be level, that needs to be like that. And then we know these feet, there's not one foot bigger than the other. Both feet are exactly the same size, so we know by that logic that that line needs to go in like that. We also know that we will make that the same because one foot doesn't stick out more than the other, and therefore draw that line in there. Now I'm not worrying too much about the other bits, how they connect. It's like a problem, it's like a puzzle. What problems can I solve? Okay, well, I know that line, I know that foot, therefore I know this area, and I can come back on myself. You then know that this line must go up, and then you will draw these in. This will go like that, this will go like that, because the foot goes behind. So I've drawn that, and I've rubbed out the lines I don't need, okay? So that's the bottom area. Now I'm going to worry about these two pegs here, okay? Now, as I keep saying, you have try and give it a little bit of thought before we put pencil to paper. Don't just start drawing and think, oh, I've done one plug really big, one plug small. I've done one that's up here and one that's down here. As I say, it is like a logic puzzle. It is that, okay, the plugs must be both the same size. They have to be the same height. They have to be the same width. So I'm going to say that I know that they don't start until, they don't start right on the edge. There's a bit of plastic there before it begins. So let's give this much area here, and whatever area there, you need to give the same there, okay? And then you have to think, okay, well, how much of a gap is in between? So let's say, okay, there's a gap in between. It's like that. That would be the middle, wouldn't it? There, in between this part. So you could do the middle and then do two lines like that if you want to. And again, these plugs don't go right to the very edge. There will be a gap there. So effectively, this area here will be the first plug. This area here will be the second plug. Don't draw these lines in, okay? But we get the idea. So I've plotted it out, and I know it goes there and it goes there. Now, drawing circles, you could, if you've got an ellipse tool, you can put it down, and I always say, if you're looking at a circle, that's not exactly a circle, let's do a coin. If you do a circle and you're looking at it like that, that's fine. But if you look at it at isometric angle, like these plugs, they will be that shape. If you were drawing it straight on, it would be that shape. Obviously it's not, is it? It's at an angle, so it's like that. I don't know if you can make that out, but it's actually like that. So it's almost like an egg, shape of an egg, isn't it? So with that in mind, that's quite tricky to draw in isometry. That's one of the things that students struggle with. So what I would say is I always plot 4 points along this line. There's the middle of that line, that's the middle of that line, that's the middle of that line. And I'm going to draw my circle in. So that way, I don't have to think about the whole circle. I think, okay, I'm only going to try and connect those two together. I'm just going to try and connect these two together. And then look at your circle like this. And you can see that this curve goes around like that, connecting to the point, and that curve goes around like that. Making those 4 points really makes your job easier. Then I rub out the lines I don't need, so I've done one of them. You do exactly the same again. So we're connecting a circle. I'm trying to do this a little bit quicker, so might mean that it's a little bit less accurate, but like that, I've done that bit. Hairy lines, which I always say we don't want. We don't want hairy lines, we want nice, neat lines. It should look like that. Then you can rub those lines out. Once you've done that, then you can think, what else do I know? Well, they go up to a certain height, so try and work out that height in comparison with the rest of the model. So if there's the rest of the model, you wouldn't expect them to be really tall. They're probably, if I'm looking at it, I'm doing it by eye, we would imagine perhaps they are maybe that tall. What do you think? That looks about right to me. So then you could draw another circle on top. Now, you could draw another box, but that might get a bit confusing. What I try and do is I try and think, can I match that curve up there? So let's see if I can match that. And if you're unsure, that height, this height should always be the same. So you could get a ruler. I've said this before. You could get a ruler and say, okay, well that is 12 millimeters. So I can go over to here, do 12 millimeters, do a point. And I can go back down here, do 12 millimeters, do a point. Let's do this, okay. I generally don't do this anymore. I used to, but if you're unsure, just give yourself more framework. So that I've connected that point, that's like that. Then this curve here, again, we'll do exactly the same thing. I'm trying to match that arc, so it's the same. This line will be rubbed out, so just ignore that that's there for the time being. And something like that. And these plugs, they do have, they're not completely circle. I've simplified this a little bit just for the sake of the drawing. They have got, you know, a bit more angles to them, but for the purposes of this tutorial, this will be fine.